Howdy, Kim.
Good morning.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
I'd much rather be seeing you in person, but at least I'm getting to see you, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Should we go ahead and get started? Am I the host, Kim?
You are. You are the moderator. I'm going to
Well,
make you the co-host and let
okay.
you take it away here, okay?
Okay. And the first question I have is rather operational. Does anybody know if there's a way to cut that ding sound off?
Let me see.
It's the sound of people joining the meeting.
Yeah,
So
it is.
unless you
Okay.
set it up as a webinar, it's going to keep going as long as people keep joining.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's fine.
So it should taper off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. It
right.
should taper off. No doubt. Well, I do have a couple slides actually by way of introduction. We've got a large group and hopefully we can have a productive conversation. I'm going to share my screen briefly. I've got a grand total of 4 slides because, as you all know, this is a participant-driven forum. Can you all see my slideshow?
Yes.
Okay. great.
Logan,
Yes.
Logan, you are now the co-host.
Okay, thank you. I'm honored. I'm going to advance the slide deck here. This is the Registrar Forum. It's always an exciting moment in the conference. There's a lot of energy in the room, and a lot of the energy surrounds the things that are swirling in our heads, as well as trying to make sure we catch our taxi to the airport and maybe grab a bite before we get home. So a little different climate this time, but I'm really glad that you're all here. It's great to see so many people that I know and usually see in person. And I really hope next year we can be back and catch up on each other's families and on our careers and on our institutions. A couple of ground rules for Zoom. This is especially important because we do have a large group today, which is a great thing. That's not a problem at all, but it does create some complexity. First of all, I do ask that you mute your audio unless you're speaking to the group. Feel free to exchange contact information with each other. One of the great things about Zoom is that you can pass a note to anybody in the room and only the 2 of you know about it. So if you want to exchange contact info based on something somebody has said or a question that you have and you think they've got some insight, be sure to use that liberally in the chat to the group or to an individual. And if it's your first time to speak, please state your name and your institutional affiliation before you speak. I want to propose because we've got a large group, I'm going to propose a little process here for getting stuff out in the forum and having a robust and productive conversation and covering as much ground as we can cover. Keep in mind, this is a participant-driven forum. This is my last slide. You will drive the agenda. Nothing is pre-planned, but it is a moderated forum. So here's what I'd like to ask you to do. For new topics of discussion, new topics only, if you'll use the chat box and just simply put a couple words that state the topic of your question. You don't have to put the whole question in the chat. In fact, I'm asking you not to put the whole question in the chat. A couple of reasons for that. First of all, we'd rather hear your question with your voice inflections rather than your question with my voice inflections. And secondly, it will prevent me from having to comprehend and digest your question before we put it out there to the group. So just a couple of words, and then wait to speak until you're recognized by name on your topic. To comment on or answer someone's question, if you will, please use the raise hand button. The raise hand button is down at the bottom under reactions in most Zoom clients. Just raise your hand and I'll recognize you if you have something to say in response to someone. So here's how this might work. Let's suppose Jonathan Helm has a question about FERPA. First of all, if Jonathan's got a question about FERPA, I'm not sure anyone will have the answer. But if he has a question about FERPA, he would just
Did you mean to mute yourself, Logan?
about that. Where did I stop?
If Jonathan has a correct question about FERPA,
If Jonathan has a question about FERPA, we're all in trouble because no one will have the answer. But he would just simply state that question in his own words, just put a couple of words in the chat, and then he can ask his own question. And then I'll recognize people based on a raise of hands who want to comment on his question. Then we'll go back to the chat and look at the next few topics. This will help us keep moving and help us cut back, I hope, on a lot of idle time. Remember to raise
Logan?
your hand.
Logan, that was my bad on the mute. I apologize.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
good. The reason I thought it was me is because I'm bad to do that in real Zoom meetings with work. Raise your hand if you have a comment on someone's question. Be sure to lower your hand, but if you forget to lower your hand, no worries. Just say that you yield back the floor and we'll move on to the next person. I will attempt to cover as many topics as I can. Here again, looking at the chat box. Okay, I'm no longer sharing my screen. And it's good to see many of you. Don't be bashful. This is a room full of about 152 people when we're in person. And so it's just simply 152 people on Zoom. So the forum is open and I'm going to go to the chat box now. And we have a question about continuing education from Gina. Gina, go ahead.
Hi, I posted that before you gave us instructions about being brief. So
That's okay. I got the topic. You take it away.
well, we just like it says, we have a student who wants to take this Oxford program, but the program does not offer a transcript. It only offers a certificate with some grades and some types of assessment and what the student actually did, maybe a syllabus or that type of thing, but it's not on a traditional transcript. And I had never seen this type of thing before, and I looked at ACE and could not find any guidance there. So I was wondering if anyone had any experience with this type of program and how you might give credit, or if you do.
Okay. I'm looking, I don't see anyone with a hand raised, but feel free if you do. That's a difficult topic. Go ahead, Amy.
I'm just wondering if it wasn't coming from where are you getting the documentation? Is it Straight Line or whatever it is?
No, it's coming directly from Oxford University. That's my understanding.
Because we've gotten some from Straight Line that, are from Oxford or Duke or whatever. But if they're just getting some kind of certificate and not credit, then we're not awarding it. But if it's actually credit, then we're awarding it from the college. But that's why I was wondering if it was coming from Straight Line. I think it's called Straight Liner.
No, it's not Straight Line. Again, my understanding is, and this came from our international center, who handles, study abroad and such. So my take was that it was actually coming from Oxford.
Do
Okay.
you want to give them credit?
Well, we would need to evaluate it, which, the College of Arts and Sciences in this case would be doing that. It's an
Go ahead,
English
Deanna.
program.
Deanna Adams.
Hey, this is Deanna Adams from Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee. And Gina, our general guideline is if it's being offered by an accredited institution or it's being transcripted, we would evaluate it for equivalent credit. You indicate that it's only applying towards a certificate, so I might ask the question of how does Oxford reconcile it? Is it elective credits towards an undergraduate or some other type of higher level award? And then I might go from there.
Okay, Gina, hope that's
Okay.
helpful.
Yes,
Question, yes, about census rosters and financial aid, Melissa Hyatt.
sorry, I had to unmute myself. So I guess first of all, how many of how many of your schools do census rosters? And if you do, how many of you is your financial aid office using that to determine when a student starts attending?
This might be a good time to use the reactions button, Melissa, for something besides a raise of hand. If you look at your reactions, you've got a yes or no option down there. So Melissa, if I could ask you to restate question 1 and ask the group to use the reactions with the yes button if you are answering in the affirmative. Go ahead, Melissa.
How many of you do census rosters?
I see a
I see an
fairly
X.
interesting mix, a surprising mix, as a matter of fact. Okay, I see about as many yeses as I see nos. Go ahead with your second question, Melissa.
So in that, if you do census rosters, does your financial aid office use them to determine when a student starts attending? By federal regulations, apparently, they have to determine when a student starts attending in order to pay them out aid. So how many of your financial aid officers are using that as an avenue?
Okay, let's use the yes,
Or,
no on that. And then we'll open it up for comments and remarks on that.
Okay,
It looks like I see mostly yeses
yes.
and a few nos. Anybody want to speak from experience on that? Looking for raises of hands.
Well, really where we're having the issue is, so because the financial aid office is using that, I don't know, maybe your faculty are different than ours, and they're just excellent at doing those census rosters and taking attendance. I mean, they are just absolutely accurate, right? So I guess that's another question, who's absolutely accurate? But because we know they're not, unfortunately, and when changes have to be made, the impact on the financial aid office, and that's a situation we've encountered in. Where does that responsibility lie in educating the faculty on how to do their census rosters, or I don't want to say pressuring them, but getting them to do them accurately and correctly, understanding the importance of that. Does that lie in the registrar's office? I guess
That's an ongoing struggle there with communication. Anybody want to speak from experience or otherwise on that?
ideas,
Yeah.
thoughts.
I'm raising my hand, Jonathan.
Well, Cheryl, is that you?
It's me.
Okay, go ahead. I didn't see you. Go ahead, Cheryl.
So Melissa,
Carson
I work at a fairly small school. We have close to, 2,800 students, but financial aid is the tail that wags the dog at my school. And so we are very cognizant of Department of Ed regulations as far as when a student earns their aid and when they don't. And if they say they're starting in 12 hours and they're down to 9, you ask whose responsibility is it? It's kind of everybody's responsibility. When I know that a student's not going to class, I report it to financial aid. I remove them from the course. But I don't know that unless the faculty tell me. So if, Google, you'll find schools that have been slapped with fines for thousands of dollars. Well, I wouldn't call it fines, but they've had to return money to the Department of Ed. That's the only, our provost talks to our faculty about how important it is for accurate attendance reporting. If they don't start class before our census date, they've got to come off the roll. That's one way we do it. I continue to ask faculty to check their rolls. If they're not going to class, if they've not started class, I take them out. I back them out so they're not registered for those hours, which makes them eligible for aid. So that's kind of how we handle it. The other thing that you've asked about census rosters, course program of study is huge as well. And my financial aid officers, they are really digging their heels into that because students can be in 12 hours and 9 they don't need just to be full-time to get aid, and they're not going to get it if they don't need it for their degree. So ultimately, it's kind of, if my financial aid staff said, Cheryl, if you know about it, you have to tell me. So, but I don't know about it unless faculty tell me. So it really kind of rests on them to do their due diligence in reporting attendance.
And that's the struggle we're in right now, is they're doing their due diligence, and the fact that there's no consequences when they don't. And the issue is we pull the students out also if they're marked as not attending. But the problem comes in that the student that they marked attending that really didn't, and a year, maybe 2 down the line goes, wait, I really wasn't there. So then we contact the faculty member and go, you said they were attending. They go, ooh, my mistake. And
Yeah.
so now you're stuck because financial aid's going, what? I can't go back and report, or I've got to open a year up and DOD and okay. Now, real quick though, Amy Barber asked if we're recording this.
Yes, we are recording this.
Okay, perfect.
Let's go to Jonathan on the, let's hit Jonathan, Melody, Tammy, Sally quickly, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Jonathan.
Thanks for letting me know we're recording this. So this has
That's
been this has been a hot topic of conversation at Baylor, basically starting last summer. We have for a long time asked instructors to give feedback on students, whether they started attending class. And before spring 2021, the highest rate of response we had ever gotten, I think, was just above 40%. So, you know, clearly not enough information to make good judgments on. So we did have support from the provost. She sent out a message right around the time classes started. We went out with messaging as a follow-up, and we got near 100%. I don't think we got quite to 100%, but that required repeated follow-up from our office, then escalating to chairs, deans, everybody under the sun to try to collect that information. But I will say, even with that response rate, I think it helped us, but it was also a little bit inconsistent, especially with multiple modalities and things like that. So it was still not clear in many cases whether a student had really begun the semester or not. So that sort of continued to be a struggle with us trying to analyze the feedback from instructors and all kinds of other pieces of data that we could latch onto to try to sort of triangulate that. So, but definitely the support and messaging from the provost made a clear difference in our case.
Okay, that's I just heard you say that, and I think I heard somebody else say that. So it was really instrumental having your provost be involved and input the message. Okay, good. Thank you. That helps.
Let's go to Melody and then Tammy.
Hi, I'm Melody Saban at Sherman College, and I was just speaking with our VP for Enrollment Services. The registrar's office falls under Enrollment Services in our organizational flow chart, and we have a faculty development at the start of every quarter, and we'll make a presentation with financial aid, the registrar's office, and Enrollment Services to the faculty to tell them why it's so important for each of our departments to know whether or not a student is attending and the deadlines that they need to adhere to, so that we're not sending back money and coming up with fines or anything like that. But it's an effort from all the departments in Enrollment Services to do this for faculty, in front of faculty.
Tammy Weaver.
Good morning. I'm Tammy Weaver from Arkansas Tech University in Russellville, Arkansas. We have a school. We were about 12,000. We're now about 11,000 thanks to COVID. One thing we did several years ago, Blackboard is our learning environment. We have a Blackboard shell for every single CRN course section. We're using Banner. In that shell, we've developed an attendance test where, because of some changes in federal regulations for financial aid for online learning, but we use this for any of our classes, whether hybrid, whether face-to-face. So a student takes a 3-point test And basically that is their participation. Now, if they choose not to take it and they go to their face-to-face class, the faculty still can record that as attendance. We have the faculty record non-attend, not the opposite attendance. So they're typically just recording 1 or 2 people in most cases. Again, it's through training at new faculty orientation. I go to that. I talk about 3 things: doing your attendance accounting and why we do it, midterm grades and final grades. That's all I want that new faculty member to get right, from the registrar perspective. I think our president, our chancellor, all of those administrators having that positive, we're doing this to maintain financial aid eligibility for our population. I do feel like sometimes we are kind of the collection agency. Students' financial aid gets reduced if we have a non-attend for one class and they're in 12 hours. So then the students in our office wanting to know how to rectify that. Basically, if they didn't attend, there's no rectification of that particular situation. But we did create an affidavit that we can send to the faculty member if they accidentally did something wrong or if they read the Blackboard module wrong. And I think that that's helped too, having that affidavit that a student can sign attesting they've attended, the faculty can attest that the student attended, and then we do research once it gets to the registrar's office whether we can officially put that student back in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A lot of good talk. Let's move on. Sally Marcello with a question about SIS tools for course applicability.
Just related to this conversation about financial aid eligibility, we are struggling to implement. We're Banner School. And by the way, I'm William and Mary, and thank you, Logan. You pronounced my last name correctly, which rarely happens, Sally Marcello. Anyway, working towards course program of study, and wondered if schools who maybe would volunteer to help our financial aid office with communication around that, or if anybody has successfully implemented either that with Banner or something like it for other systems. Thanks.
Good relevant question. Here again, folks, the process is if you want to answer a question, please use the raise hand button. I've got a list here that shows at the top whose hands are raised, and I'll be glad to call on you. Amy, I see you're clapping. Is that a hand raise?
Well, let's see if I don't have the little thing that's on yours. I was just talking to somebody else.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, you use if you don't have the hand raise, use the clap. Go ahead, Sally.
Yes, I don't even have the yes or no, so I haven't been answering, so I can't figure that out. But maybe I need a new version. But Sally, we're working in the middle of it. We're having troubles right now with Banner being able to get it running right. But I'm sure that we could definitely reach out to you, Sally, and help you as we move forward.
Any other comments on that question? Okay, want to go back to Tracy Roberts with a question on course audits.
Hi, thank you. I'm with Murray State University, Tracy Roberts, and my question is regarding course audits. If your school allows course audits, what kind of deadline do the students have in order to change from credit bearing to audit bearing to audit?
And Tracy, just to clarify, you're referring to auditor enrollments, right? Which
Correct.
means you're enrolled as an auditor, but not for credit.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody want to raise hand on that? Go ahead, Kim.
Hi, I am Kim Langlois with LSU Law, and for us, our last day to change to an audit is the last day to add classes for a semester. So typically it's like a week within the semester, but that's when you can choose to either enroll in an audit or change a course from credit to audit.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Anybody else? Amy, go ahead.
That was just that's what we do.
Okay, good. Diana Hull.
Hi, Diana Hull, University of Florida. Our deadline is the end of the drop add period.
Justin
Schilke, Rice University. To add just a straight up audit, it's the end of the add period, which is week 2. To switch from a credit to an audit, it's the end of the drop period, which is the end of week 7.
Okay, anybody else on that? Okay, here again, the process is if you've got a new topic, please feel free to put it in the chat box, just a couple of words, and I'll call on you and let you ask your own question. If you want to answer someone's questions or make a comment about something someone said, please be sure to raise your hand and I will call on you. Feel free to exchange contact info either to everyone or individually. The great thing about Zoom, you can pass notes to anybody in the room and only the two of you know about it. So feel free to do that. If I could go back to Tracy again, you mentioned something about the registrar listserv. You want to speak to that just a minute?
Yes, Logan. I was just wondering if all the registrars on the list on this presentation is familiar with the registrar listserv. It's hosted by GSU, I believe, and otherwise known as Registel, I guess you could say. Anyway, I would highly encourage anybody to sign up for that if you aren't already following it. I have found it to be a very, very valuable resource, and there's many participants on there that are very active, asking questions, polling, you know, fellow registrar staff, you know, for best practices or opinions.
That's good to know. And is that a regional type population or is it for anybody?
National.
Okay.
And it's from what I can see, it's not really restricted to any particular institution or level of staffing.
Okay. Great, thank you for that. And if you have, Tracy, if there's any information you have that or how to get connected with that, if you could put that link in the chat box, I'm sure
I sure will. Thank
that
you.
a lot of people would appreciate that. Okay, I'm looking for new topics. So if you have something that you want to raise for the forum, please be sure to put it in the chat box. I'm not seeing anything new. New topic from Amanda, mass registration access. Go ahead, Amanda.
Hey, good afternoon, y'all. So at UNCW, we are a banner school. We have historically and traditionally kept our access to SFAMREG, the mass registration form, in-house and registrar only. And I'd like to continue with that, but I've got a college who's being very persistent in asking for access to that form. Developed their own little academic support role that's kind of like a technical type role that they want to be able to allow access to that form. And quite frankly, the only reason they know about it is because they poached one of my employees and took someone from my office who knows what that form can do. I'm standing my ground and saying no, but I just kind of want to fit a pulse for the room if anybody does allow access to mass registration outside of the registrar's office.
Okay, so your question is about giving people outside your own unit the ability to register students en masse for one or more courses.
Correct. So if we want to use the yes, no, we can do that. So if you do allow outside, you want to put the yes button or a clap. And if you don't, put the no button or a frowny face.
Yeah, and I think it would be helpful. I think there would probably, I'm taking a leap here, there would probably be a consensus in opposition to that amongst this group. I may be a little bold in saying that, but if you do allow it outside of your individual registrar's office, I think it would be helpful to hear from you on that. So let's go to Gina.
Hi, Gina Jones at Winthrop. Amanda, I share your concerns. We have been hesitant about allowing anybody outside of the registrar's office to register students. However, this last summer, due to COVID and all the challenges we faced, we did allow a few folks in our what we call our student services offices in the various colleges to register some students because the students weren't getting the hands-on help that they normally get during orientation. So we did allow that. And while we did not use the mass registration form, that is something that we would certainly look at as this year we're going to have the same challenges. And I think it would help tremendously if a few folks other than registrar folks be able to register students. I will say that I only allowed it as on a temporary basis. So I took it back after the semester started.
Diana Hull.
Hello, Diana Hall, University of Florida. I guess we're the minority. We have got 57,000 students. I encourage people to use the mass registration. It's used very heavily by our professional schools, medicine, dentistry, veterinary medicine, pharmacy, as well as so many other reasons, and we've had no problem whatsoever with it.
Okay, let's move on to a new topic. Teresa Thomas on faculty documentation for FA grades.
Teresa Thomas, Middle Tennessee State University. The auditors are in the state, and what we're hearing is a lot of findings for not having documentation related to a student who had an F or FA grade. So if they earned the F or if they stopped attending, what document has the faculty member gotten that proves that? And are you storing that? How are you gathering that for when that faculty member doesn't have it anymore or when they've left the university?
Okay, so Teresa's question then is, what documentation do you have that you can show to an auditor, and how are you storing it related to F or FA grades? By that, she means failure or failure to attend. Be glad to recognize someone on a show of hands. I see a clap. I see a couple of, Amy, go ahead. Amy Barber.
It wouldn't unmute, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
This is Amy Barber, East Carolina University, and we have the students, the professors, when they put the grades in, to say if somebody never attended. So we won't let them put in a grade of F without putting a date in, if I'm understanding the question correctly. So we're making them put if they never attended, they put the first day that the classes started, and that's going to, the financial aid office can pull off of that.
Yeah, we've got a similar thing too, where did they attend no classes? Did they attend one class? A little drop down menu on the grade.
We do as well, but the auditors are now saying that's not good enough, and there has to be documentation.
And Teresa, are they giving you examples of documentation that they would find acceptable?
Assignments, specific assignments showing it, grade books showing due dates and grades on those, but perhaps email correspondence related to the course, but not just simply what date that they reported, or that it has to be actual documentation and not just an email from the professor saying, I worked with them. Something actually showing that back and forth communication.
Linda Terry Holland.
Sorry, you see me? Okay, so we have an attendance policy. It's called an administrative withdrawal policy. So they get an AW for a grade, but we have that set up on like a form stack form that comes through our office, and then we just scan that into the student's file as documentation. And it says the last date they attended and all that information. We also require a date for any grades of F as far as their last date of attendance when they enter grades.
Okay, let's move on to a new topic. Christine Weldon with a question about diplomas at commencement.
Yeah, thank you. Christine Weldon, Oral Roberts University. We are trying to find out information for those of you that hand out diplomas either at the commencement ceremony or the same day as the commencement ceremony. First of all, just I guess kind of sort of who does it, but more so, what is your process for when you receive final grades for your seniors? and your process for like how long it takes you to award. If you can tell me roughly the size of your graduating class, that would help. We're being asked to do this and trying to figure out how on earth to make that happen. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
great question. And if you've got some, if you think you really do it well or you really do it differently, I think we'd love to hear from you on a show of hands. Got a big group. Surely somebody will take that one. Go ahead, Deanna.
Well, I think we really do it well, but I may be a little prejudiced.
Deanna, because you're at Rhodes, I'm sure you do it well.
We have about 500 graduates every May. Student body of right at has been at 2,000, post-COVID, we'll see what that is. Our final grades are due the Monday morning prior to the Saturday commencement. We work very hard, long hours that week to get those grades processed and get those 500 approximately students cleared. We pre-print the diplomas, so we're printing multiple diplomas based on what we think the students' final grades are going to be, especially if they're graduating with Latin honors. And we reserve the right to put a little note in the diploma cover that says, oops, we made a mistake. So, if a student is a double major or something happens with final grades and it makes that particular diploma invalid, they may still be able to participate in the ceremony, but they'll get a blank diploma cover that said, and we have typically reached out to that student prior to the ceremony. We don't actually update our student information system, which is Banner, with the degree awards until the following week, but we do update those. If our commencement is on Saturday morning, we start bright and early Monday morning awarding those degrees, so that usually by Tuesday, transcripts are available.
And Deanna, what is the rationale behind the week after in terms of coding it in the SIS and presenting transcripts with the degree?
It's a time thing. Our focus is on getting the diplomas ready for the commencement ceremony versus updating the student information system, because nobody's going to be getting a transcript before that Saturday anyway. And our transcripts, even if you order it on Saturday, it's not going to get processed until the following work day. So it's a time thing. It takes every bit of the time that we have between that Monday and that Saturday morning to get the diplomas ready. And that's with a lot of prep work prior to that week.
So do you guys do all of your final checks to make sure the student is on track to graduate? You do that all before commencement week?
We do as much as we can prior to commencement week. So theoretically, the only issues we would have to attend to commencement week would be some F grades or maybe some probationary issues or GPAs within the major not being adequate for the major or the minor. Occasionally we'll have students and faculty who maybe haven't gotten substitution approvals in, but it's not because they haven't been contacted. So
how many staff do you have working on it?
3.
Christine, what size of a graduating class do you have?
So we typically have around undergraduate students around 650. If you include our graduate students, close to 800. And right now our process doesn't have final grades received until the Tuesday after commencement. And so that's part of what's having to be redone. But also we are a banner school, but we're still using CAP for our degree audit system. And all of our awards are very manual. So I'm trying to figure out how to award degrees and we print in-house. So trying to figure out how to do all that in a very short amount of time.
Print diplomas in-house?
Yes, we print diplomas in-house.
Okay. Anybody else want to share their process or thank you, Deanna, for that. I see a couple thumbs up. I see a raised hand. That would be Jonathan.
So I'll just share real quickly, Baylor University distributed diplomas at commencement until fall 2019. And I'll say we're very thankful that we're no longer doing that. That was something that was on our to-do list, and we finally got things aligned where that occurred, so forth. My recommendation is if you don't already do it, I would not suggest starting. It is just, there is a lot of effort, time, and coordination that goes into it. I was looking back at spring 2019 as you were asking your question. So for us in spring 2019, the last time we did it, finals ended on a Monday. Grades were due for graduating students at 5 p.m. on a Tuesday. And then we had our first commencement ceremony on a Friday. So we basically had Wednesday and Thursday, but for us, the only things that, in my opinion, allowed this to work were a lot of dedication of time from staff and a good portion of our staff during that time frame. At Baylor, students are cleared for degrees by their school or college. So the actual clearance was going on there. And we're heavily dependent on our degree audit system in doing that. So without minus any of those things, we wouldn't have had the success that we did in being able to accomplish that. So,
Mary Kincannon.
Hi, I'm at TCU, Texas Christian University, and we have always given out diplomas at commencement. Our classes now are running between 18 and 1900. We have degree candidate grades due on Wednesday at 5 o'clock before the ceremonies start on Saturday. Our time frame is compressed. Faculty don't like it because they have to get grades in early for a group. We actually create 2 grade rosters, one for graduating for degree candidates and one for the non-degree candidates. So they can, if they've got degree candidates in a class, they can get their grades submitted and go back and finish grading the rest of the class. We have Latin honors overprint. We send them back to the printer to get the correct Latin honors done. We make last minute updates to the program, and that usually goes out on back to the printer on Thursday. And then those come in, I don't know, sometime late Friday night, I guess. That the program doesn't come out of our office other than the graduate names and majors. But, you know, I think I could echo Jonathan's, you know, if you don't already do it, it takes our whole office. And so, you know, if you don't have to, it's a nice touch, but gosh, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I've never heard of any university going from not doing it to doing it. I mean, I guess if you lost half your enrollment, maybe you could pull it off, but we do it as well, and it's not easy, particularly as Jonathan was saying, where each school certifies the completion of the students' degrees. If you're just joining, we've got a couple of minutes left. If you've got a new topic, you can put it in the chat box. If you want to react to something, I will be glad to call on you if you raise your hand. A new topic about transfer credit from Andy Rep.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how many schools do accept alternative credit beyond AP, CLEP, military credit, and the like. For example, the companies who have partnerships in transcript through ACE. I was just wondering other people's thoughts on accepting credits such as Straighter Line, who does have a partnership with ACE.
Taylor Richmond.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Taylor Richmond from WVU, so I'll keep the Big 12 theme going here. This actually goes along back to the question from Gina earlier regarding certificate work. So we recently implemented a process that works through our transfer credit evaluation workflow, where students who receive an actual credential or certificate, so the Oxford, Google Office, Microsoft Office, anything along those lines that has an actual tangible document that they can send to our admissions office. We request the students submit some type of documentation outlining what the experience does or did for them, what they learned. We forward that to the representative faculty or department for an evaluation. We'll use ACE recommendations or the faculty determination based on contact hours in the program and award an equivalent if possible, or at least some type of elective credit. But if it's not regionally accredited, to articulate the credit to the student's record, we actually have an additional process where they must petition the dean's office of their academic college to have it added on. So it's not something that we automatically do for them or automatically process, the term of admission or when we receive it. They have to actually petition also their college, because some of our colleges have specialized accreditation that won't allow this. But we do provide that option for them. And like I said, it works very similar to our transfer credit evaluation, and we have built in a special institution code in our Shitator and our banner tables to house these equivalencies, and working with our admissions office on cataloging what certificates go with what code in that system.
Thank you. That's very helpful. This tells me next year we need a session on how people are handling straighter line credit, because it's new to me as well, particularly working in a school of medicine where transfer credit's not a thing. Christine, and then we'll maybe hit one more topic.
Yeah, so we do accept some straighter line. The way that we handle transfers, because we're a private institution, we don't have a state, board of regents or something over us, is we have a transfer matrix that's maintained by our office. It's updated at least once a year, that we get input from the academic departments as to what they will transfer in. And that can include straighter line and other ACE accredited tests and things like that. We send the information to them, to our department chairs and deans. They make a decision on what they will allow to come in for credit, be that either specific credit that we would offer or elective credit. And then we will award that. And then we also have a petition process for any credit that a student wants to try to get credit for, be that regionally accredited or not. Most of them are regionally accredited. We do have articulation agreements with non-accredited institutions that are Bible schools, things like that, since we're faith-based. But we do take some straighter line. It depends. We don't tell the students we take everything. There are certain classes we will, certain that the departments have said, no, we won't take those.
And so I think one thing that would be helpful for a session next year would be some institution who seems to be doing it well in terms of guardrails and guidelines about what you'll accept for straighter line. We've got a new topic from Cheryl. Go ahead.
We're just looking for a solution. We're still in paper-based forms, and we're looking for a solution. I noticed on the forum yesterday, someone mentioned having a petitions forum, I thought they said. So anyway, just ideas for something other than paper that people are scanning back and forth from office to office.
That sort of hits on a question we have from Tracy Rees. I think it's a similar question. Tracy, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, yes, I'm from George Mason University, and I am wondering what workflow products you are using in your registrar's office.
And I can think of several that are on the market out there that are vended. And so if somebody's got one that they think works really well or one that works really poorly, I think it would be advantageous for this group to know either way. If you're kind of right down the middle, maybe we can hear from you at the end. But if you've got one that seems to be working well in terms of configuration on a raised hand, I think we'd like to hear about it. I know there are some good ones out there. Somebody's got a thumbs up. That is Karen.
Hi, sorry, I can't find the raised hand either.
Oh, that's okay. We'll take your thumb up. We'll take your thumb, but can't take your whole hand.
My name's Karen Beckett. I'm at the University of Miami. And last year we started using Boomi Flow, which is a Microsoft product. We had been using Dynamic Forms, kind of split down the middle with what people thought about Dynamic Forms, but I did not like it. What I love about Boomi is that you can customize the workflow. It pulls the information from our student information system, so there's very little manual entry done. And we have been slowly converting all of our forms from paper or PDFs to Boomi. And I think this month, we're going to roll out our first one that actually requires payment. So I am a big fan of Boomi, if,
And
for what it's
Karen,
worth.
I've not heard of Boomi. How do you spell that? Or maybe you could put it in the chat.
Boomi,
Okay.
just like it sounds, Boomi.
Just like it sounds. Okay. And can you give us a little, give us a few examples on some of the transactional pieces that are working well with it?
Sure. So currently we use it for our bio demo. We use it for our bio demo update form. We use it for our Social Security form. We are rolling out our readmission form with it. We have used it extensively for our remote learning. When we had students who wanted to do remote learning, we were able to do an application that started with the student, went to financial aid. Financial aid was able to do mass uploads for adjustments to aid. Then it goes to the school and it goes to the student and they can sign. That's probably been our biggest one. We also, this past December, launched our athletic academic, what's the word? Athletic approval. I'm blanking right now. That students are academically eligible. We use it for that. So we've used it for quite a few things, and we're just gonna keep going through all of our forms.
And Karen, are you still on PeopleSoft at Miami?
Yes, we are.
So it integrates well.
It does. We were able to use it both to pull information out of PeopleSoft, and then with our remote learning, we put a service indicator on students indicating they were remote, so faculty would know, and it's able to automatically populate that field for us, so nobody has to go in and do it manually.
Okay. There's a question from Teresa specifically whether or not people are using Boomi with Banner. Jonathan. No, you're not using anything with Banner, right? Not using Boomi with anything. Okay. There's a couple folks who are using dynamic forms, and there seems to be some positive comment there. Anybody want to speak to dynamic forms just because it's different from Boomi, which we've heard about from Karen? Anybody? Okay. Jonathan, go ahead.
So I was just going to chime in. We don't have a dedicated workflow that we're using. I'm envious of some of the options here. I'm familiar with Boomi, but not this aspect of it. So that's interesting to me. We did find some pretty helpful workflow, though, in OnBase when we transitioned from Knowledge as our imaging system over to OnBase. And we've actually used it pretty successfully in ways that we didn't even anticipate in response to COVID. Overall, it's been pretty user-friendly. The fact that we already had it and there wasn't any added cost was a big bonus for us. And then we do have it writing to Banner to make updates on certain things. So that's also been very helpful. So if you have OnBase already, that might be something to check into.
OnBase, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
just a fun fact. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Boomi also pushes it into OnBase. We have OnBase as well, so it pushes the PDF form into OnBase.
And so,
yeah.
what would you be? In terms of utilization, what would the use differences be?
For us?
Yeah, for OnBase versus Boomi.
Yeah, so we use OnBase for all of our document storage across, the entire funnel. But it pushes the completed form like as a PDF right into the student's file. So we have a hard copy of that.
Okay, that's great. We are about 9 minutes over. Obviously, I guess nobody's got a flight to catch. So I did take the liberty to let us go over a little bit. This is being recorded. So the recording will be available. I hope this has been helpful for everyone. This is about as good as we could do a forum in the absence of a gathering in a conference room. So thank you for coming. And I really genuinely hope, and I am optimistic that we will get to be together again next year. And I hope that we do. And I hope that you all have a good COVID semester, and stay safe and stay well. And we will see you hopefully next year in person.
Thank you, Logan.
Thanks, Kim.
Hi, guys.